Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Thursdays Talking Pools podcast with Wayne and Steve. We are recording this the day after Hurricane Milton kind of screwed up Florida really bad, big time. So we want to make sure that everybody keeps their minds on our friends and our colleagues down in the supposedly Sunshine State now. A lot of really weird, fucked up stuff going on down there. See, I'm actually have CNN on my other monitor, and I'm looking at some of the pictures and the videos, and it's pretty wild looking what happened, particularly where it hit Bradenton and went straight across. But we got people down there, and they're all safe, thank goodness. Two of our Talking Pools hosts are Florida based, Rudy and Andrea, and they're all okay. But yeah, it's gonna be a big effort to take care of those people down there and everything to get back to normal. So speaking of getting back to normal, let's go ahead and touch base on what we're going to talk about today. And this is kind of a follow-up from last week, Steve, when we were talking about, what if you have to fire a customer or you get fired or what happened and whatnot. But there's a whole process involved when you're dealing with, and not really dealing with, the wrong choice of words, when you're signing on a new customer. There you go. Maybe it is dealing where it is pretty much right, but there's a whole process involved. And Steve, why don't you go ahead and kind of walk through what that process is? And it's not as easy as you think. It's pretty involved and pretty detailed. So go ahead, Steve, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Wayne. Hey, everybody. How you doing? So yeah, we kind of left off with the last show that we did of, that sometimes you're going to wind up getting fired from some of the clients, and that's okay. Like, not every single client is going to be the greatest fit for you. And, before we dive into this on what you really do at the beginning, I want to talk about, it is okay to also let a client go if they're not serving your needs anymore. In that aspect, and how they might not be serving your needs is, number one, you're not making enough money anymore. And like I said last show, I have some clients when I was a single poler that I was doing for we were negotiating, and I wanted the business. So I would take them on for $40, $50 a visit or whatever it was. And that was okay because I was the only one that was in their backyard. But as my pool company grew and I started taking on employees, and now those employees are going out and, vacuuming the pool and doing the pool route, it kind of ate into my money, ate into our money, our company's money. So now you're not making that $30 a stop or whatever it is. Now you're paying for the chemicals and you're paying a guy to go do the pool. So sometimes you got to sit down at the end of, and that's why it's so important to document and measure everything that you're putting in the pool, because now at the end of the month, you can see, shit, I can see exactly what I put in. I can see exactly how much money I made or didn't make. And, even as a bigger company, and I wouldn't say that we're a bigger company, but we have a lot more clients than we did 5 years ago. It kind of can go through the cracks of that you don't notice for a month or two. And then 3 months down the road, you're like, damn, wow, we're actually only making $5 a stop.
Right.
And at that point, if you're only making $5, $10, $15, $20 for the month and you're paying a guy to go out there, or you're going out there 4 or 5 times and you're not making that much money, it's time to let that client know. And I always tell, the words that I use are very specific words when I'm talking to clients. And when I'm telling them that this doesn't make sense anymore, I tell them this is not fiscally responsible for my business anymore. And that basically is just telling them look, I'm not making enough money on your pool here, is really what it comes down to.
It's called the point of diminishing returns, if I remember my economics right.
Yeah. It is. And, like I said, it is okay to, let a customer go if you're not making enough money. It also is okay if this customer is a huge pain in the ass to let them go. Sometimes clients, I've had to, and I didn't fire them. I've had to actually kind of check my clients a little bit and say, I had a guy and he's running Swimply at his pool. And Swimply is basically an Airbnb where you can have other people rent your pool for an hour. So he has this lady who does swim lessons, and she has swim lessons all day long.
The mobile WaterLink Spin Touch allows pool and spa professionals the ability to test water in the field. A patented WaterLink Spin reagent disc is used with the innovative photometer to measure 10 different tests in just 60 seconds. That's right, just 60 seconds, and you'll have results displayed simultaneously on the photometer's touchscreen. That's not all. You also have the ability to send the data through Bluetooth into a smartphone or a tablet device. The photometer can measure free chlorine, bromine, total chlorine, combined chlorine, pH, alkalinity, hardness, cyanuric acid, copper, iron, phosphate, borate, biguanide shock, and salt. The water analysis can be proactive since they are able to measure all of these important tests and recommend correct procedures to fix their water chemistry issues when using our WaterLink Solutions Pro software program. It allows pool and spa analysts the best way to achieve precise results. So simple, anyone can use it. This is the most advanced system for precise use of wet chemistry methods ever produced. Pool and spa analysts can achieve precision without time-consuming tests or cleanup procedures. This groundbreaking analysis system is so simple, no vials to fill, no prep time, no guessing. To learn more about this innovative lab, visit www.waterlinkspintouch.com. Again, www.waterlinkspintouch.com.
You know, and these people are telling me like nobody really uses the pool, and it's like nobody really uses the pool, but there's 25, 30 people in the pool during the week. So that's a lot of people in the pool. So this is almost now like a commercial pool, you know? Yeah. And like they were just like texting me a bunch, and I was out on like a date night or something, and it was like, 8:00 at night, and they just kept texting me, and then I would call and they wouldn't pick up their phone. And I'm the type of person where like I will step out of dinner and talk to my clients, and if they have a problem, I have no problem doing that. But like I don't want to sit there and fucking text with you back and forth with 8 texts, and then when I call you, you don't pick up. So I was like, you need to call me. And I wound up talking to them on the phone, and I just told them very nicely. I was like, look, I love your business, and I love having you guys on my client roster. But I was like, I have to like step away from the phone. I was like, I can't have you texting. I was like, texting me these 5th and 6th level questions at 8:00 at night. Like, let's just have a phone conversation when it's appropriate. But like, you asking me this question, and then I answer that question, and then you ask me 3 more questions. I was just like, like people actually pay me to pick up the phone for their employees, like I have quarterly, service contracts with people where I just pick up the phone and I just do phone consulting for them, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not saying that, that I don't want to talk to you. I was like, it's just with my business, like when someone texts me, I feel like I need to respond. And that has nothing to do with the client. It has to do with me and the way that we run our business, and that like I always want to be on top of my shit. So I feel like, and I was like, look, I was like, I apologize. I was like, it's not actually you guys. I was like, it's actually me. I was like, if you keep texting me, like I'm going to keep responding. So I was like, I need you to just stop texting me now. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm on vacation for the rest of the night. It's the weekend. Like we can fix this on Monday. Like I'm going to get back to you on Monday. No big deal. And that wasn't a huge deal, but it was one of those things where I was like, I really need to talk to them about this and kind of set things straight with them. You run a pool company, and like now you have 80 to 100 clients. Like they think that you're their only client. You're like, you know what I mean? So they will text you if you allow them to text you and call you whenever. They will take advantage of that, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't pick up your phone after hours, especially if it's an emergency or something, that needs to be taken care of. But there's a lot of things that like can just be taken care of on Monday, know? So, and then there's also those clients that are a really big pain in the ass, and like there's always a problem. It's always something like your guy, he did this, or he didn't brush the step today, or, whatever it may be, things like that, where it's just like, okay, like this is kind of crazy here, like this person is, every time there's just, it's just every time there's just issues and stuff. So it's like now you're taking a lot of your time that you could be doing other stuff and making other money, and you're actually putting that time towards putting out fires that this person is just like, not making up in their head, but like making a bigger deal out of things that aren't really a big deal. Again, like not that I have a shorter leash with those people nowadays, but as you grow and as you get bigger, again, there's going to be like certain clients that you're looking for to fit your mold. And that's obviously ones that are near your other clients, you know, in the neighborhoods that you're already in, because I don't know who owns a pool company that wouldn't be like, I wouldn't take like 10 pools in that same neighborhood. Like, you want all your pools to be in the same neighborhood. So you can just go there for the day, do your pool route, and then be done, you know? So again, it's okay to actually fire your clients, you know, like not everybody's going to stay on your roster forever. So that's something that like at the beginning, I would get really upset that like these clients would go, or like that they, you know, one of them a few weeks ago was like, hey, like we just want to move in a different direction. You know, like we feel like, you know, we found someone who's better with the pricing and things like that. And like, I was like, well, is there anything else that like we could do? And, you know, I always ask that, but again, like a lot of times it's just time for you to part ways, you know, and as long as you do good business and have done everything that you can, like you can hold your head up high and say like it, you know, like every once in a while we're going to lose clients, you know, especially when you have these growing pains. And then you have to step back every once in a while and say like, maybe we need to do some better training and education with our guys, you know, because a lot of times it's not you that's getting fired. It's they don't like the certain guy that you're sending to their pool, or maybe that certain guy has a lot of pools going on. So now he's kind of cutting corners and different things like that. Like I found that where I'm like, they're always brushing the pool, but like my guys, the first week of the month is supposed to do a full panel test. And that's like a lot of testing that you have to do if you have 10 pools that day, or that week, like that whole week you're doing full panel tests. So a lot of times they'll be in a rush and they won't do it. But again, like that's something that is expected of them and is part of their job. So, you know, I'm always quick to remind my employees too, like, hey, like this is actually what you're getting paid for and what you're expected to be doing. So I'm expecting you to be doing all of the things that we've trained you to do and be doing them properly. Okay. So we always, you know, you always want to make sure that you check up on your guys, especially if you're not a single poler. And that means like going around every once in a while and like the day after or like 2 days after going and checking on those pools and just giving them another test. And I bet you what you're going to find out is a lot of these pools don't have fucking cyanuric acid. A lot of these pools have high phosphates, because you're going to show up 3 days later, you're going to test the pool and it's going to have 0 chlorine. And you're going to be like, what? Like, why? And, you know, you're going to find out, like, maybe we haven't been putting in enough cyanuric acid, or maybe your guys tested the cyanuric acid the first week of the month, but then they're not testing it for the first week of the month to the next month. So it's like, that's stupid too.
Yeah.
So anyway, sticking on topic with what we are talking about for the show, I want to talk about how you get these clients from them calling you on the phone to you quoting them out and getting started with them, and things that can help you. Okay. So first things first, someone calls, you definitely want to find out what has been going on with them. You want to ask some questions. So you want to say like, is the pool clean and clear? You always want to make sure like, you know, is the pool clean and clear, or is it green? You know, and a lot of times you're going to find out like, oh, the pool has been sitting there for 2 years or whatever it may be. And you're like, okay, well now it's a totally different situation. Right. So, and then I always follow up and I ask, do you know how big this pool is? And like people, it's a question that like nobody really knows, but like they want to know it. They feel like they should know it. So they just just throw out some answers. Like people are just like, it's not that big. It's like medium size. You know, I love that answer.
And it's always wrong. The answer is always wrong.
No, some of them are right. But again, you don't have to go out to see how big this pool is. Okay. If you can get them to send you a picture of the pool and you'd be like, I kind of want to see how deep the deep end is. So I'll usually make them send me a pool of the picture. A picture of the pool and then a picture of the equipment if they can. And then I go straight to Google Earth and I look up their address on Google Earth and I measure their pool because I can do the length and the width measurement there. And then as long as you know the shallow depth, which is always usually 3.5 feet. And then the deep depth here in California is the magic number is 8, but a lot of pools will be 5 or 6 too. So as long as you know how deep the deep end is, you can figure out how big this pool is. And, you know, I'm not going to go too far into my pricing structure of like how much we actually charge because everywhere in the country is different. But basically, we charge the same amount for all pools up to about 15,000 gallons.
Okay.
And then once you get into the 20,000, it's $5 more. And then 25, $5 more. 30,000, $5 more. So on and so forth. And like we stick to kind of a pricing structure of like, it doesn't really matter where you live because LA is kind of like, you know, all over the place. As long as you're within where we're at, you know, basically we can follow this pricing structure. But a lot of times we'll get to the pool and we'll do our initial site visit, and we're going to test for the cyanuric acid, the calcium hardness, and the total dissolved solids, because those are the ones that we care about at the beginning, because those are the long-range tests that we talked about in last show. So if those levels are high, I say to them, hey, in order for us to take care of your pool, we really need to drain it, and sometimes it's just drain it and fill it. Sometimes it's drain it and chlorine bath. Sometimes it's drain it and acid wash. And like I said, I definitely don't acid wash Pebble anymore, but with white marshite or whatever, we will. And then we'll fill it back up. And that's a chance for you to make more money, because now you can charge them extra money to drain their pool. Most people aren't going to be interested in doing that themselves. Then you fill the pool back up and you basically have the client turn it off when it's up there, where it's supposed to be. And then you can get started with your regular normal service visits. If not, I kind of tell them that I'm kind of wasting time, money, and energy. If not. All right. So once you get started, all right, now you can do that weekly visit, that first visit, or you can come and do like a follow-up visit. And once you get started, it's really important when you're there to do things in a manner that is efficient with your time. And the biggest thing that I've learned, like going out and training guys, is that you guys that have been in the industry for a really long time, you're really set in your ways, So like the guys that I've had that come to my company that have been doing pools already, I'm always like, shit. I'm like, what did he learn? Like, what did he learn? Like when he was out here on his own, what is he throwing tabs?
Unlearn it,
like what does he know and not know? And those guys, you guys that have been in the industry, like once you start to get to know stuff, you're like, oh, like I know everything. You know what I mean? And a lot of other guys have attitudes like that, where I really like the guys. And this is a tip for you guys out there looking for new people to hire. I like taking a guy that has no pool experience and, going out with him and showing him the exact way that I want to do things, because then, when he gets out of the truck, like before he gets out of the truck, he's going to go into the app and he's going to put in his in time, and then he's going to bring the test kit and whatever vacuums and stuff he thinks he needs in the back, he'll bring that stuff with him. We like the wireless vacuums. I think that, and don't get me wrong, I love the Riptides and I love the Hammerheads and all that stuff, but like for the where we live in California here, like it's not that crazy dirty. So we're not using those most often. Like we're using like Leaf Demon, like wireless, leaf catchers, and then like their sand vacuum and stuff. And then making sure once a month we're doing it with the blue vacuum hose, like a full real vacuuming. But again, the rule of thumb is like, if you're brushing and there's a puff of stuff coming off, like you're not doing your job. You're not doing a good enough job vacuuming, right? So I always go to the pool first and I always test the water first. Okay. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about the tests and stuff in a little bit. But then after I'm done testing, I say, okay, what do I need to do to clean the pool? And then I'll take all of that stuff that I'm done with and I'll bring it back to the truck and I'll leave the brush there with the pole and the net. Usually I'll just leave that at the pool and I'll bring whatever stuff I need back to the truck. And I will I will do my calculations at the truck and I'll figure out how much chlorine I need and how much acid and how much bicarb and, cyanuric acid, whatever you're going to put in. And then I bring that back to the pool. I put that in the pool. And then I'm brushing the pool always at the end. So I'm always vacuuming the pool first, and then I'm brushing the pool at the end. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to minimize trips back and forth to the truck, because I've calculated it before. It's like, I forgot the brush, or I forgot I came with the chlorine, but I forgot the acid. So now you got to put the chlorine in, and now you got to go walk back to the truck and bring the chlorine back to the truck, and you got to go grab the acid. And it's like, you think it's only a few minutes at a time, but then you have these clients where it's like a 4-minute walk, or a 3-minute walk back to the truck, and like you got to walk all the way around their house, like up these steps or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of different things in there that like you can waste a lot of time, So what helps me with time is, like I said, buying yourself a robotic vacuum cleaner and giving that out as a demo and then taking it back. Now, robotic cleaners, it doesn't matter to me which one you get. Polaris makes a really nice one, but they're like almost $2,000. They all have like wireless ones now, but I don't like those. They only go on for one cycle. Dolphin Matronics makes a really good one. I don't care what kind of robotic vacuum cleaner you use. I want you to use one that will go on every day. that like sets its own schedule, if that makes sense. I don't want you to use one that you have to go out there and press the button for it to go on. Because if you have to press the button for it to go on, nobody's doing that. I want it to go on every day while I'm not there. So now when the technician shows up, I'm like, let me, 20 minutes and I'm out of there, as opposed to an hour. All I got to do is clean the vacuum out, And then during Bella, hey, sorry, my dog's going on.
Hey, Bella.
So anyway, like I said, I love the robotic vacuum cleaners and the salt cells. If you have that as a combo, it just makes your life a hell of a lot easier. But again, that's really how you start out with a client. And then once you get started, kind of the process of what I'm doing when I go, on site. So Wayne, I know that you want to tell us a little bit more. We talked a little bit about, testing the water, and we talked a lot the last show about the different types of tests and, when to do them, and like weekly or monthly or whatever. But a lot of these tests, they give you either like false truths,
right?
Where they tell you something that's not going on, or it's just totally wrong or not right. You know what I mean? And it's totally off. So go into a little bit about, what we were going to say with kind of the trials and tribulations of testing and the things that could go wrong.
Right. You said earlier about, when you go out there and you test for what you're calling the long range tests, the TDS, the hardness, et cetera, alkaline. That's great. But at some point, you're still going to have to do, a sanitizer test and a pH test, maybe something else if it needs it. And the issue here is not the test kit manufacturers themselves, but it's the simple chemistry involved. And if something goes wrong, it's, again, not the manufacturer's fault, usually. It's the chemistry. Something is causing your reading to go off. So what I wanted to kind of touch base was on sanitizer and pH for right now. But with sanitizer tests, and we used to get this question an awful lot, and it kind of from service people, from homeowners, and it messes people up from the get-go. I mean, they'll go to do a chlorine test and won't get a reaction. Okay, they won't get a pink color. So it'll be clear.
No chlorine.
Oh, well, I don't have any chlorine. I'll go add some more, right? Well, they just shot themselves in the foot because they actually had a whole lot of chlorine in there. And what was happening was the test was what we call bleaching. And it's exactly what the word says. It is that it will bleach out the color development so that it makes it look like you have no chlorine in there at all. And you mistakenly add more. And, it just kind of exacerbates it after that point. Normally, a good test kit manufacturer will explain what's happening and tell you how to correct it. And it's pretty simple. If you're doing a straight color matching test for chlorine, where you're adding the reagents and you're getting a color and you're holding it up and you're looking at it and you're matching developed color with some kind of a printed standard or something. Easiest way to remove that interference, or even to verify that there's no chlorine in there or high chlorine, is simply a 1-to-1 dilution. So it's 1 part pool water, 1 part non-chlorinated water. And what I usually tell people is that bottled water that has not been drank, use that as your diluent. Because tap water does have chlorine in it, or let's put it this way, better have chlorine in it. And you could get a slightly higher false reading. But if you use the bottled water, you go to your local convenience store and you buy that 6-pack or whatever they come in, and use that. And then do your test exactly like the instructions say to do, whatever those instructions are. And then you get a color. Knock on wood, you get a color, and you match that color to the standards that are on the comparator system that's being used, whatever it happens to be. And whatever value you match, multiply that number by 2. So, for example, you do this 1-to-1 dilution, all right? And you get a color, and it matches 6 parts per million, whatever that standard happens to be on the comparator block. Well, that's fine, but you're really twice that. You have to multiply that 6 by 2. Okay, so you really have 12. That's not good. Really, 10's kind of, you don't want to get much above 10 unless you have to for whatever particular reason. Okay, the PHTA standard, all the standards that are out there, Generally speaking, free chlorine can be anywhere from 1 to 3. It could be a little bit higher if it needs to be, that kind of thing. But between 1 and 3 is usually the average around the country. You do this 1-to-1 dilution and you get the 6, you're really getting 12. Now, what's even worse, that say you do this 1-to-1 dilution and it's still clear. What do? Well, you've got 2 options. Yeah, you don't have any chlorine. Absolutely none. And the way that you can tell you don't have any chlorine is terribly, terribly complicated. You stick your hand in the water and smell your hand. If you smell chlorine on your hand, you've got chlorine in there. It's much, much higher. If you don't have that chlorine residual smell, that's the best way to describe it. I can't think of anything else. Then you've still got a very high reading. And then you can do higher dilutions, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever manufacturer can help you get that answer to. Okay. Most of them say, okay, here's your 1-to-1 dilution, fill it up halfway. Some of them have a 1 to 3 level, some have 1 to 4 level, things like that. Same goes true with those of you who do the drop test for chlorine or bromine. Same thing can happen. You take your sample and you add the powder, the DPD powder, and it's supposed to go pink. Okay. Doesn't go pink. It just kind of sits there. Okay. You mix it, it might be a little residual crystals on the bottom, but nothing happens. What's it telling you there? Well, with the drop test, what's neat about that is that the chemistry involved behind that, the FAS-DPD chemistry, you can accurately do that test when your chlorine level is up to about 20 parts per million. And I always tell people that if you have to measure your chlorine at 20 parts per million, you have some other issues to deal with other than the high chlorine. But it's good up to 20. So that if you do that drop test and you add your powder into there and nothing happens, it still stays clear, then again, either you have no sanitizer in the water or it's well over 20. And it's probably the no sanitizer option rather than the high over 20, unless the pool has been recently shocked up to 30 parts per million or shocked high. Let's put it like that. Then you might want to do, again, a 1-to-1 dilution. And you can do that with the drop test, the FAS-DPD method. It's more of an eyeball thing because depending upon what kind of a sample tube that you're using, there may or may not be a mark for halfway up for whatever volume you need. So say the volume for the test says, okay, you need a 20 milliliter sample. Okay. Well, half of 20 is 10. So you fill it up to 10 with your sample water, then from 10 to 20 with that bottled water we were talking about. Do the test, multiply a final answer by 2. Okay. That's a 1-to-1 dilution. Pretty simple. Okay. But you probably don't need to do that with the drop test, with the FAS-DPD test. Because again, if you have to measure 20 parts per million or higher, you have some other issues.
Yeah, once I get past like 20, 25, like I usually stop counting the drops at that point, and I'm picking up my phone and calling whoever it is. I have a really bad problem with that right now. One of our clients is a casino, so it just gets, and it has a spa in there, and the spa owner is not the casino owner, so it's like a separate person that hired us as well. Right. And they were like, oh, we also want to hire our own pool company. And they write in the same book that we do. And the other day, this guy put in 3/4 of a gallon of chlorine into a 1,500 gallon spot. So my guy, my service manager came in the next day and he was like, the chlorine's at 40. So I have a call with them today after we get finished. I have a call at noon to talk with them and kind of be like, what are you guys doing? Because I know what's happening. They're using the DPD test and they're saying, oh, there's no chlorine in the pool. Let's put chlorine in the pool. Right. But also they don't know how big the water is. I said to, my contact there, I was like, you would put 3/4 of a gallon in a 75, 100 gallon pool if the chlorine was at 0 and you wanted to bring it all the way up to 10. So I was like, this is just simple math that we're going, that we're talking about here. So it's something that.
And you and I both know, Steve, that 10.7 fluid ounces adds 1 part per million per 10,000 gallons. That's kind of ingrained in our brains.
Yeah.
You're talking liquid. So, 3/4 of a gallon in a small spot like that. Yeah, no wonder they're really, really high. Jeez.
I mean, and this is at like at the professional level, right? Like this isn't this is like another company that's supposed to be like one of my competitors, and they're out there, just doing stuff like this. So it's not just like at the YMCA's or at the township pools or, like if there's a lack of training all over the place. So that's why we always tell people to, take the CPO course and to at least go out there and get some education, because these aren't numbers. This isn't like this is a Hayward heater or this is a Pentair heater or this is a Fluidra heater, Jandy heater. Like everybody agrees that the standard is like we shouldn't have it over 10 parts per million. And like, that 10.7 fluid ounces in, in a pool is going to bring it up 1 part per million in a 10,000 gallon pool. So it's just simple math that like they have calculators out there that you could use. Orenda has a calculator. Pool and Hot Tub Alliance used to have a calculator. I think they took it off because they're trying to make a new one or something. But again, like there's just, there are a lot of pitfalls that do come with this. So is that the biggest one with chlorine, or are there others with chlorine too, Wayne?
That's probably the number one. Okay. The number two would be getting colors that you don't expect there to be those colors in the test. For example, when you're doing your normal pH test in a pool or in spa, you're using an indicator called phenol red. And phenol red normally looks like a blood red kind of color in the bottle itself. And then you add it to your sample, and then it turns a color that normally at the low end is yellowish and at the high end is purplish. And in between, it goes from yellow to light pink, the red, dark red, that kind of thing. And most standard comparator systems in which you're trying to match colors usually go from either 7 to 8 or 6.8 to 8.4, because that's what phenol red measures in. Okay. So what happens when you go to do your pH test and you're following the instructions exactly, your reagents are fresh, but instead of getting that normal coloration, that range I was just talking about, the sample goes grape purple. Okay, almost like a grape popsicle kind of purple. Something's happening because most Yes, Steve, do you have do you have a question? You raised your hand.
Yeah, I know. I think I know this one. Is it high? Is it high? But I'm not 100% sure. Actually, it's high chlorine, right? High halogen that does that.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Because most of the phenol red indicators that are made already have some kind of what we call an inhibitor in there, which means that it can handle high chlorine readings up to around 15-ish parts per million. Okay, roughly. So you get that deep purple, great purple color. And when you're doing a pH test, that's two bells that go off. One is I got to figure out what the real pH is. And number two is my chlorine level's all screwed because it's higher. It's probably higher than 15. And the solution for that particular test to get rid of that interference is really, really easy. You dump it, you dump your sample, you rinse everything out, you get a fresh sample. There's a reagent in a standard test kit called thiosulfate, and it's normally part of the alkalinity test, because with alkalinity, you have to neutralize the chlorine, and thiosulfate does that. It neutralizes chlorine or halogens and stuff like that. So what you would do is you get your new sample, and then you would add one drop, this particular thiosulfate reagent, and then you'd mix it, and then go ahead and do the test normally, and then you're going to get a right color because it eliminates all that excess chlorine to get the right answer. The kicker is, and a lot of people think, oh, my chlorine's really high, I'm going to add more thiosulfate to get rid of the higher levels. No, it doesn't work like that. There's only one drop for a reason, because the pH of thiosulfate, is high. It's 9.6. Remember, in pool water, you want it to be ideally between 7.4 and 7.6. Okay, 7.5 is a bullseye. All right.
So,
but with high pH, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Wade. Okay. I was just going to say, for me, thiosulfate, every time it's chlorine neutralizer, right? So it comes in these little like gel pellets that you can put in the pool if you're actually trying to bring down the chlorine.
Right.
I've had it happen. I've had a few different things happen with it. It's the only thing that I don't follow the manufacturer's directions to a T. Actually use less than it tells me to, because anytime you overdose with sodium thiosulfate, now like you're proper screwed, right? Like now you're just going to be pouring in chlorine, and it's not going to be doing anything, right? It's just going to be taking out more thiosulfate.
Right. With treatment products, if you add a little bit less than what you figured out you needed to do whatever it is you wanted to do, it's always better to adjust up than it is to go backwards. Because
that's not just with thiosulfate, that's with everything too. Like even with baking soda, like, you know, if it tells me to put in 15 pounds of baking soda, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put in 5 or 6, you know, in like a 15, 20,000 gallon pool. And then what'll happen is the next week I'll come back, and you should, if you added 5 pounds, you should have to add 10 more pounds, right? But now you do the calculation again, and it says you only need 7.
Yep.
You know what you just did? You just saved 3 pounds of chemicals by doing absolutely nothing. And like, if that's not a good business practice, like what is? You know what I mean? So
exactly.
And then I've also had it happen where like one of my good clients owns a swim school, and they mess around with sodium thiosulfate all the time too. And it just it creates bather. I'm not sure why, but like some of the kids that he has that are in the pool that work for like, you know, 5 hours straight or 6 hours straight in the pool, they'll complain about like they're itchy and different things like that. So I don't.
The pH is high. That's why, and it's irritating. That's exactly what's happening. The whole thing about the 1 drop is really important with the testing kits. Is that if you add more than one drop of this product, you're actually changing the pH of your sample, and you're going to get what's called a false high. So, you know, I always emphasize that, you know, follow the instructions. They're there for a reason. Be followed. Don't think you know what you're doing, because you probably don't, unless you're doing this forever and ever, and you can do it, you know, in your sleep, upside down, backwards, that kind of thing. So those two are the most important things. And I always tell people too is that if you're not sure of your testing ability, okay, whether you're a homeowner or whether you're a service guy or gal, get somebody else, okay? Get a coworker. If you're a service person, that maybe that's shadowing you for the day, a new person. Get them to test it, because remember, guys, we can't see reds very well. It's just an ophthalmologic fact. Women can't see yellows very well. Guys can't see pinks and reds very well. I have kind of a color blindness called red-green, which means that when you put certain shades of red and green together, the best way to describe it, looks like a little mini earthquake, little quivering thing goes on. What does it to me is Captain Crunch cereal boxes. If I go to the supermarket and go down the cereal aisle and I look at a box of Captain Crunch cereal, the whole front looks like it's like a little mini earthquake. It's kind of weird, but like I can tell red, I can tell yellow, I know what green looks like, that kind of thing. But you put certain shades together, it looks weird. Like when I was younger and I first started needing to wear glasses, the test that they give you at the eye doctors is, you know, all those little different colored dots, and you got to find the letter or the number in there. I could never find any of those damn things to save my life. And, you know, they kind of look at me funny and say, I say, I don't know, it looks like a snake maybe. No, it's not a snake. It's like a 3. Okay, if you say it's a 3, you don't see that? No, I don't see that, kind of deal. So it is what it is. Okay, so I remember when I worked for Taylor, R&D people would never come to me to help test out new stuff color-wise, because they knew I couldn't see colors very well. It's like, yeah, and I was only with them for 31 years, you know? I can't see colors.
We'll frequently buy a new test kit. We just did that the other day. Or like a lot of times we'll buy our commercial clients a test kit. And anytime we get a chance to have a new test kit around, we'll always do a couple tests at a couple of the pools to make sure that both of the test kits are kind of, you know, your old test kit is still doing what it's supposed to be doing, and this new test kit that you just sold, you're not selling a bum test kit, you know.
And I've got something that's going to help big time. What it is anytime you want to test a test kit to see if it's actually working right, most test kit manufacturers have something called standard solutions. And what these standard solutions are is a pint bottle, usually of a solution that is designed to read pH at 7.4 or 7.5, cyanuric acid at 100, alkalinity at 100, hardness at 200, whatever it happens to be. And you use those standards instead of your sample water. And when you do that, you should come up to whatever the label says it is. Alkalinity at 100, give or take, usually 10 parts per million either direction.
Yeah, you're the one who actually taught me this.
Huh?
You're the one who I didn't know this before you had told, not now, but years ago, you had told me this.
Oh, yeah.
And it was great because we were able to, test some of our test kits and stuff, which was kind of nice.
Right.
But
and it works with any test kit. Any test. It doesn't matter whether it's a Taylor kit, a Lamont kit, or anybody else. Okay. It also works with electronic pieces like Lamont Spin Touch and the Spin Lab and things like that. The same thing. You can test it and using these standard solutions and check to see if what you're working with is actually giving you what it is it's supposed to give you. Now, the problem comes with is that there's no real standard solution for sanitizer, for chlorine, because it'll dissipate out by the time it's actually created. So what I usually tell people is that if you know what your municipal water system's sanitizer reading should be, okay, use that as your standard. Perfect example. When I worked at Taylor, we were on Baltimore City Water. We were at the very end. And I knew that out of the tap in our lunchroom, chlorine was about 1.5 parts, 1.5 parts per million, okay? So I would use that as my standard solution, okay? But knowing that it does fluctuate slightly, but I know if I got around 1.5, I was still really good to go. There are standard solutions for other things, but quite honestly, like for phosphates and sulfates and crap like that, but you don't want to have to deal with those. But the standard ones, hardness, alkalinity, pH, cyanuric acid, common is all cut out. So the best people to talk to about those is the manufacturer. Okay, call the people at Lamont, call the people at Taylor, call the other test kit manufacturers. Say, hey, I want some standard solutions. What do you got? And usually they come, like I said, in pint bottles. It's not terribly expensive either. I know that a lot of health departments use our standards, or use standard solutions to verify whatever testing systems they're using. Are they still good? Usually they're not, but verify that they're still good. So so there's that. You can test a test kit. And they work for test kits too.
It's important to know, to make sure that you're out there and you're providing a service that people are paying for. Right. And you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that that we provide an enjoyable swimming experience for you and your family, right? Is really what we're saying, and that's what they're entrusting you to do. And it's really important that you do that, and I've had a few things come up this year that weren't an issue before, like I said, I laughed when you were saying 1 to 3 parts per million. You're never going to find one of my pools at 3 parts per million. They're always going to be like, if we could keep it at 6 all day, every day, I would be really happy with that. And again, it's harder when you're going to these clients once a week because you're trying to put in enough, you're trying to shock it to 10, then have these people be able to get into the pool tomorrow, and then be able to hold enough chlorine residual for you to come back next week, which is sometimes it's a problem, right? So I've found that a few of my clients that have kids that use the pool frequently, sometimes they'll have a salt cell, and my guys will also dose the pool when they shouldn't have put that much chlorine in there. And now I've had complaints of hey, our eyes were burning. And usually the eyes burning is not because of high chlorine. It's usually because of low pH. But there's no way that this pool has low pH because they're on a salt cell, and the salt cell's creating its own liquid gas, liquid chlorine. So that's coming out at 13 parts per million or whatever it is, pH out of the cell itself. Right. So there's no way that the pH is low. And, what fixed it for us was us dialing back the chlorine a little bit to make sure that, it was in that, 2, 3, 4 parts per million range.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and that's
again,
why it's important to test for salt too.
Right. And again, like I said before, if you test for something and you have to put it in the pool, you have to test for it the next time you come back.
Right. You got to give it at least one turnover.
Yeah. But you got to come back and you got to take a look at it. And the biggest thing is with all of these parameters that are supposed to be within, where they're supposed to be, this shit doesn't just happen on its own, you know, like you got to go back and you got to tweak it yourself and you got to keep coming back and putting in a little bit. And my motto is you're always putting in a little bit over a long period of time. Like the only thing that's going in all at once is chlorine. You know, the chlorine has to go in all at once, but all of the rest of the chemicals, like when we're putting in salt, and I learned this the hard way. You know, I measured a pool one time and the builder was there and it was 12,500 gallons with the length and the width and the depth. And I was like, builder, what's the volume of this pool? And he was like 12,500. We high-fived. I put in salt 30 days later for a 12,500 gallon pool. And the salt went up to 6,800 instead of 3,200. You know, because we didn't think about there was a bench that was down the length of the pool and the width of the pool that was actually 2 feet, right? So it took 2 feet off of the length and 2 feet off of the width. So this pool was actually like 8,800, 8,900 gallons or something like that. And we thought it was 12,500. So from now on, when we go and we put in salt, you know, sometimes it'll say you need to put in 500 pounds of salt or, you know, 10 bags or 12 bags or something like that. Like I'm never putting in 12 bags all at once. I'm putting in like, if it tells me to put in 10 bags, I'm putting in like 6 or 7 bags and then I'm coming back and I'm retesting it and then I'm putting it back, you know, I'm raising all those bars slowly. You know, the only thing where it's really, really super important is like if you guys are doing the startups of pools and things like that, where if you're following the National Plasters Council and you're doing the 30-day startup method, you know, it's really important that you follow to a T of like, hey, you bring this up this day, you know, and that's all because you're hydrating the plaster itself to, you know, acclimate to that certain pH and you gotta, you know, and the certain calcium levels and different things like that. But again, like that's a separate, you know, a separate episode as far as that goes. Again, testing all of this stuff is so super important. And I know that there's pool guys out there that are only testing for chlorine, pH, and I'll wait. That's it. You know what I mean? There's nothing else you guys are testing for. So,
well, like, I remember going to the pie show, Monterey, and seeing, you know, the old OG people. Okay, have a little thing.
I know exactly what you're gonna say. The leather belt, the leather holding case looks like they're packing heat, and they got an OTO yellow, yellow ORP one, right? And like a red pH one. And then I would see them and they would just go a couple drops into the pool and they'd be like, oh yeah, I feel it here, you know? So it's like, and again, when people ask like, hey, why are you guys so expensive? I explain to them, like, we have all of our guys are thoroughly trained. All of our guys are thoroughly educated. And, you know, even though my cleaner might be coming and he's not advanced enough to, you know, go into your heater and do troubleshooting on your heater, like I can still have him go turn on the heater and see if it goes on or if it gives an error code, you know, like he can still do that. But like, I'm not going to have him, because at that point I'm charging you extra money anyway. So like, I don't need the cleaner to do that. But you have to explain to people why you're better than the competition. And I always say like to them, I say like, I don't think that we're better than anybody else, but we have a really high standard that we, you know, that we go to and that we expect our guys to be part of. And, you know, sometimes we find out that like our guys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you know, and that hurts too, where you're kind of like, damn, like we are providing a service and this person is right. Like they are paying us a lot of money a month and we need to make sure. And that's why my guys, they need to make sure. The biggest thing for me is like they were getting so good at doing these pools that like they were in and out in like less than 15 minutes. Yeah. And again, like even if you're really in a rush, like you can't be running around the pool, like literally, you know, like you have to take your time and make sure that like each person, if they were to watch you, that they feel like, oh, this person cares about my pool and they're actually taking time to test all of the parameters and put everything within the ideal ranges. And again, provide for an enjoyable swimming experience for the people that are in the backyard and that are going to use the pool. Because again, like if you're trying to fetch multiple hundreds of dollars, $200-$300 a month for pool service, like you better be doing a really good job, you know. And that's the thing. Like we charge a lot, but we do a really good job, so we feel like that's our worth. So you know, the whole point here with this episode is to give a little bit more to you for you to be able to give that and show that to the client that, hey, this is what you are paying for, because we do test all of the stuff. And every week we do put everything within the ideal ranges, you know, and that's what separates you guys, your training and your education. And not only that, your experience and the way that you talk to people as well, too. And like, again, like sometimes it's hard. I understand, like sometimes you're annoyed, or like you got other shit going on with work, or like today I got one of my cars in the, you know, one of my trucks are in the shop today. And that's like, then someone calls and like, you're already kind of pissed off and like, you're kind of attitudey already, you know? So like, you just kind of have to breathe, and you have to make sure that you remember that like you own this company and you have 80 clients, but every client that has you, they only have you, you know? So they need to feel like you care about them and you're their number one, you know?
And to show your value.
That's is. And, you know, the more you can show your value and your experience, the more money you can get and the more money you can make. And, you know, then you don't feel bad of like, am I worth these prices? Like I'm over it. Like when someone calls for an inspection, like that's my price, you know, and they're like, oh, wow, that's expensive. And I'm like, I agree. I'm like, you know why it's so expensive? Because at the end of my report, I'm going to give you a number that says exactly how much it is to fix this. So you can now have a negotiation tactic for you to, you know, negotiate money off your house. Oh, and that's worth something. That's worth concrete cash.
Exactly. And I think we've talked enough today. I think we're done, because you got to get to work and it's in the afternoon for me. So everybody, thank you for tuning in to listening to Steve and I drone on about things. Appreciate it. And as always, if you have an idea or question, please feel free to drop it to us at talkingpools@gmail.com. And it will be sent to us if we use your topic or answer your question. We'll send you a little thank you present, nice little hat that says, you know, Talking Pools on it. In the meantime, Stephen, thank you as always. Appreciate it. And we'll be talking at you next Thursday. Take care.
Bye-bye. See you guys next week.